Welcome to the Festival of Entrepreneurs, recorded live at the NEC in Birmingham. Over the next few minutes, you'll hear from some of the most incredible founders, investors, and business leaders who joined us this year.
We're going to be talking about how do you go from a startup to a national brand. And actually, I'd go further than that and say international as well, which is what some of the guys here have done. So I'm Jeanette Linfoot. I have got the pleasure of moderating this session today. So make sure you keep some questions as well, because we want to give these guys a good grilling as well at the end. So if you've got any questions, make some notes. But I'm the founder of Brave, Bold, Brilliant, which is a business where we work with organizations to help them scale up their leadership, their teams, and their strategy. I spent 25 years in the travel industry as the CEO of the travel division for Saga, which is their FTSE 250, and the MD of the emerging markets for TUI. So I now take what I learned in the world of big business corporate to smaller organizations to help them scale up. And I have a podcast called Brave, Bold, Brilliant as well, so check that out. But we're going to do introductions this way. So Mark, we're going to start with you. Give us a little bit of an introduction, then we'll go down the line and get stuck into some questions. Does that sound all right, everyone? Can I have a nod and a yes? Does that sound all right? Amazing. Right, Mark, over to you.
Can I just say, I love the audience participation. I'm going to get you to do that in 2 seconds. My name is Mark Rushmore. I am the co-founder of a brand called Suri. We make the most highly rated and sustainable electric toothbrush in the world. Just a quick show of hands. Who here brushes their teeth? Yeah. Who here uses an electric toothbrush? Okay. And who here loves that gunk on the bottom? Oh, there's always one. Well, anyway, our brush gives a really great performance, has a beautiful design with features that people like a 40-day battery, an aluminium body, a magnetic mirror mount so you don't get the gunk, a travel case, a UV light, and that's some of the reasons why we now have 13,000 reviews at a 4.7 rating on Trustpilot, and one of the reasons why we're the 7th fastest growing company in the UK and expanding quickly abroad. So look forward to answering your questions.
Amazing. Over to you, Claire.
Thanks, everyone. Hello, everyone. I'm Claire Warner. Keep still. Sorry, can you hear me?
Hang on.
Always one, isn't there? There's always one. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Claire Warner. I'm co-founder of Æcorn Aperitifs, which is the sister brand to Seedlip, which revolutionized the way we drink. So who here drinks? Who here loves to drink alcohol? Who here would sometimes like to not drink when they're drinking? Yeah, okay, so hello. So we kind of kicked off the non-alcoholic revolution about 10 years ago, and Seedlip and Æcorn were acquired by Diageo in 2020. And so for the last 5 years, we've been kind of really working very hard to ensure that you've got delicious, available, yummy drinks that don't contain any alcohol. So happy to answer any questions that you might have about drinking, but maybe not if you're drinking too much. That's for somebody else perhaps to tackle, not me. Oh.
Yeah, can you hear? Oh, perfect. So I'm Laura, the founder of Monk, and our mission is to be the most transformative 2 minutes of your day, and we do that through cold exposure. So is anyone here a fan of ice baths? A couple. Okay, normally you really over-index with founders because we're the weird people that are prepared to do hard things. But anyway, we make beautiful tools for uncomfortable growth.
Wonderful. Can you hear me? Oh, wonderful. See, only one. You're okay. My name is Melissa Snover. I'm the CEO and founder at Remedy Health. We are a Birmingham-based technology developer that's building additive and advanced manufacturing technology that we use to personalize both preventative and curative health. Our flagship brand is Nourished, started as a D2C concept, the world's first personalized gummy vitamin, and it's now launched in close to 40,000 stores across the globe in retail and pharmacy.
Amazing. So what a great panel we've got, ladies and gentlemen. Should we give them all a round of applause for their intros? I think we should. Okay, so let's get stuck into this. So I really want to start off around scaling up and what has been the sort of one big secret or the big ingredients that's made the difference for you in terms of going from starting to scaling. So Claire, going to come to you first, if that's all right.
Yeah, thank you. I think, look, when Seedlip was launched in 2015, it was introduced to a consumer that didn't yet understand how to drink when we're not drinking. And so we introduced Seedlip and then a few years later Æcorn, And I think the secret for us was to really clarify the message around what to drink when you're not drinking. And that was quite a functional message. It's kind of, we all understand that alcohol is fantastic, it's very social, but perhaps we would enjoy other ways to consume delicious drinks. So the what to drink when you're not drinking message was very clear, very targeted. But then for Æcorn, we took that into a much more celebratory space. So it was much more about, what to drink when you're enjoying food, how to spritz with us, how to be social, as well as, not as well as being moderate. So for us, it was about being very laser focused on the issue, on the challenge, and then addressing that challenge with some delicious drinks.
Wonderful, that's great. Laura, what has been your secret to success in scaling up?
Do you know what? There hasn't been one single thing. I think for us, we've made a lot of strategic bets, and it's just those layering up. But also, we're not at a point where I would say we've really fully scaled. We only fully launched at the beginning of this year. And I think one of the things we've realized is you have to have the right product. And our first generation 1 product wasn't suitable to scale. We're working on Gen 2, and I think that is going to be the biggest unlock for us. I actually listened to this podcast, which was like 3 years of therapy. It was the episode with Will Ahmed, the founder of Whoop, on how I built this. And he was talking about hardware, particularly connected hardware. And he was saying, so many founders think Generation 1, you're going to sell 100,000 units. And actually, that's the wrong goal. The point of your Gen 1 is just to buy you time to learn about the market, get the product right for Gen 2. And that's kind of where we are at the moment. Although we are, national, we're in... with throughout Europe in, a few countries, but again, on quite a small scale. But with our new product, we're gearing up to go out to the Middle East later this year. So, yeah.
Amazing. So watch this space. So because scaling it means different things at different times, doesn't it? And so for Melissa, for you with Nourished, what's the one big thing that's really stood out as you've scaled the brand, would you say?
Yeah, I think, everyone's scale-up journey will be different depending on how you have set up your business. We are a full-stack manufacturer, so I think the single biggest thing that I'm glad we did and has been really crucial to our success is that we started from day one being fully compliant with the rules that we knew we would need to be compliant with if we wanted to be big. So I guess the theme is start as you intend to carry on. A lot of, I think, smaller businesses that are in regulated industries like food and VMS, which is what we are in, will start and they will seriously underestimate the amount of time and investment that you need to put in for compliance. And at the end of the day, if you can't be compliant and scalable, you can't grow your business past a certain point.
Yeah, so it's a really interesting point there, Melissa, around putting the right foundations in the beginning so that you can then scale up, and rather than having to unpick it later, which is a lot harder and probably costs you a lot more money.
Yeah, exactly.
So great piece of advice. And Mark, for you with Suri, you're on a very fast track journey. What's the standout thing that's making a difference for you and starting to scale in?
I am just a very basic person, I think. And this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous probably compared to these much better answers, but just lots of people brush their teeth. I mean, it is a genuinely enormous market. There's not many categories. I think everyone here brushes their teeth. Dare I say, not everyone takes vitamins every day or non-alcoholic drinks, or you know what I mean, and so we're sort of lucky in that we have this absolutely enormous market. The electric toothbrush portion of it is in double-digit growth, so you've kind of got this organic momentum. And then just when you look at the market dynamics, there's also really only 2 players who've got an 80% market share. And so, we don't have to have a huge market share in the market to have a sizable business. If you take a 10% share of a $13 billion category, you can build a sizable business. So that's kind of the core. But then absolutely the scalable systems, from day one we knew that given the size of the business, if we're going to build this so that everyone in the world can buy one of our products, what does that look like from a systems perspective, from a compliance perspective, from a scaling, operations, finance team, everything. And so we had some experience in building and selling companies before this, and so I think we basically made a lot of errors and continue every day to make errors. And it's sort of through those very painful moments that you learn how not to do things. Fortunately, we've got some great partners as well. There's Troy, if you put your hand up, coming here to support us. iFulfillment are our 3PL, and when I remember going down, and they didn't want to necessarily work with us to begin with because we just had an idea. We hadn't sold a single product. But fortunately, given that they're a decent-sized 3PL, they took a risk on us. And from day one, I think actually we sold out immediately, and they went from 0 sales to 5,000 units in the first week. And so fortunately, we've had a good partner who's been able to sort of scale with us.
And we're going to talk about the power of relationships and how important that has been in all of our business journeys over time. So good shout out to Troy over there. Well done.
He can tell you a thing or two about relationships as well.
What type? No, we'll come to you later, Troy. That's off the stage conversation. But Mark, you mentioned about this isn't the first business that you've been in. Everyone here on the stage had life prior to their existing business today. And I think sometimes we forget how transferable our skills are actually from our previous sort of experiences, whether it was in corporate, whether it was with other startups. So for you, with your background, what have been the things from your earlier career that you kind of brought into Suri that had really helped you in terms of transferable skills from life pre-Suri, if you like?
So interesting, because definitely there's things I brought from business. But actually, a key message I would say to anyone is there's also a lot of lessons from outside of business. God, if you want to be humble, try looking after 2 children on your own who are under the age of 6. I learned a lot about sleep deprivation, extreme stress, anger, emotional issues, just from this morning. But actually, an example who in my life is my mother was a stay-at-home mother, and then she became a marriage counselor for Relate, which is a charity, and she spent 20 years working not for money, and through that she kind of learned about asking me interesting questions. If someone would act in a certain way, she'd say, "Oh, why do you think they did that?" And I'd be like, "I don't know, because they're a dick." But she'd say, "Well, what about their day? What's happening?" And it's sort of just those questions got me to think in a slightly different way. Oh, maybe there's another reason, or I wonder why, or actually, how can I respond differently? How can I adapt my response? And then I think she then went on to work in business and was very successful. But I think my point is, it doesn't matter if you don't come from a big company background, if you haven't worked before. I think the fact that my mother can do it from the age of 40, having never worked before, or I really just think anyone can be an entrepreneur.
Yeah, and great example of a role model actually there, and those important questions of start with why. Simon Sinek, start with why. Why do you exist? What's the purpose of your business, etc. So yeah, some great advice there. And Claire, for you, you've been on a journey as well over the years. Anything that you carried from your sort of earlier professional life into the businesses and where you are today, actually within that Diageo world, shall we say?
Yeah, so I spent, I studied law, and then I didn't want to be a lawyer, so I became a bartender instead, which still upsets my father today. That was 25 years ago. And I became a bartender because I just thought I'd stay in hospitality until I figure out what I'm going to do. And that's how many people get into hospitality, which is fundamentally an industry built on relationships. And from there, I then joined LVMH, and I spent 15 years at LVMH, so very much in the business of luxury spirits, luxury brands. And we were instilled with an entrepreneurial spirit, so that was how we did business, to be imaginative, to be innovative, to work with smaller budgets, to think about how you can take legacy brands and interpret them for generations of new consumers. So I was already sort of taught how to be entrepreneurial, but with brands that already had a legacy. And so when I wanted to create my own brand, I assumed wrongly that whatever we created would automatically be attracted to a consumer, because that's the way that Dom Perignon works, or Krug works, or Veuve Clicquot works. From a luxury brand perspective, you're already ahead of what the consumer's looking for. But when you're creating something in the non-alc space, in a category that's nascent and actually probably really didn't even exist, the humble moment for me was whatever we created needed to really meet the consumer's need that perhaps they weren't aware that they needed, but still needed to kind of tap into some emotional need around wanting to feel part of the party, feel part of the social engagement. And so the first iteration of Æcorn we created and we shared it with our bartender friends, and they were like, this is delicious. And then we shared it with consumers, and they said, this tastes awful. And I don't know if everyone remembers during COVID when we were all drinking Negronis. When was the first time you had a Negroni? Does anybody remember? And who here's had a Negroni? What was your thought the first time you had a Negroni? It's disgusting. Why am I drinking this? It tastes like medicine. And that's the first feedback we got from Æcorn. It's so bitter. Oh my God, how do I drink this? And we had to do a big job of education, big job of kind of building confidence around why Æcorn was relevant. And I think that for me was, you know, a long learning journey. Don't assume that you have all the answers. The answers are really coming back from what the consumer's expectation of what you're creating for them, and being flexible with that. From a luxury perspective, there's less flexibility. From a new consumer brand perspective, you have to be much more kind of flexible and reactive. So that's the journey I'm still going on, I think.
Yeah, amazing. So we're going to talk about brand and product and distribution in a little bit more detail. But for you, Laura, what sort of, you know, stood out for you in terms of kind of your lessons from early business to the business you're in now with Monk?
I think probably two things that really came from like previous career. One of those being branding and marketing. Like back when I had like a real career, I was working in advertising for agencies like Saatchi, and just building brands was something I loved, and that was so important for Monk because we were in product development for 3 years, which was never the intention, it just happened. So we're pre-selling this product that essentially doesn't exist, and you know, people don't really buy products, but they buy the brand, they buy the story and everything. And also it's interesting with a product like an ice bath because very few people actually enjoy using it. You know, if you're saying to someone, hey, do you want to use this product? You're going to hate it. Every cell in your body is screaming at you to get out. So we're not selling that, but we're selling like the transformation that comes with cold water therapy. So the storytelling was such a cool part of it. And then the second thing, it sounds so cliche, but it's network. I think in the 2 previous businesses I had, I spent a lot of time and effort really building up network. And you know, even if you can almost buy access to them. Like Mark and I actually met on an island in Croatia as part of this this group called Baby Bathwater, and they used to hire out this whole island. It was just like, what, 100-200 founders just partying for 3 days. But like, it's the connections you just get from that. You know, there's another one in London I joined called Dorian, which again was brilliant. Met loads of my investors there. But yeah, I'd say branding and network were 2 big factors.
Yeah, amazing. And Melissa, from your point of view, you obviously had multiple businesses. You've started, exited, started again.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think my only employed job in my life was being a waitress, which I loved, by the way. When I was in university, I started my first company when I was still in my MBA. And I have had 4 very different businesses, actually. The first one was in finance. That was extremely good, as was my university education in accounting and finance. If you can't understand your numbers, doesn't matter how good your idea is, unfortunately, that is the facts, you will not be able to make it. And so many great ideas fail because the entrepreneur does not understand the cost to get to market or the customer's propensity to spend. So that's something that is foundational for any business, I think. My next company, I didn't manufacture it, but I came up with a brand. I had to learn how to do packaging. I had to learn how to do labeling compliance and international shipping. And I had to learn how to pitch retailers. And I had no idea what I was doing. My first ever retail pitch, I brought a 29-slide page deck. And the buyer was so kind that by the end of the meeting, he said, just so you know, most of the time, those decks are around 5 slides. And he, luckily, maybe he felt bad for me, but he gave me a listing in 800 stores and Stop and Shop in the US and allowed me to use the order to invoice factor the manufacturing. And that was the beginning of a brand that I was able to grow to a really substantial size. So each of those experiences gave me different amounts of knowledge and confidence around different areas. But every single one of them, I've had to learn new things. In this business, I had to learn how to build 3D printing technology, use G-code, and set up my own manufacturing site. And I think this one is the most complex by a country mile. But I think in general, all of those things are just individual pieces of knowledge. Knowledge is available to you. It's more available to you now than it ever has been. I mean, I think a lot sometimes, what would I have done if I had to ChatGPT at my fingertips at the very beginning? I mean, it's a fun thought exercise. But what is more important is the confidence that I have built in myself and my team, that no matter what comes at us, and the challenges are huge and different, we will be able to overcome it. And you don't have that when you're new. And every issue is life or death.
Yeah, so there's a lot in there around mindset, around surrounding yourself with the right people. But Melissa, I just want to loop back around to you around the finance side, because you said basically if you don't know your numbers, you're dead in the water as a business owner, founder, whatever. So 100% agree with that. It's so important. But I want to talk about raising finance as well. Which would be good to get everyone's perspective on this. But Melissa, from a female perspective, you have gone out, you have raised finance. For those that were here this morning listening to Liam Fox on the opening panel, a lot of it was around the blockers for access to capital, right, that we face as founders. So Melissa, for you, how have you managed to raise the finance that you needed? And were there any nuances from a female perspective? Sorry, Mark, but I'll touch on it because I know there's a very limited proportion of VC capital goes to female founders versus men, right? So I don't want us to have a big gender discussion, but I think it is a relevant point about generally raising finance. And two, as a female founder, how were you successful? And any tips for anyone here thinking, I need to raise some capital? What's the best way to go about it?
Yeah, so raising money is really difficult regardless of whether you're a female, male, underrepresented founder, regardless of industry. The amount of change that has happened in the funding markets in the last 6 or 7 years is momentous. When I raised my first round, which was the highest ever female founder seed round in UK history in 2019, which is not a lot of money, and someone should have already beat me, but that just shows that it is true, because no one has. It was so much easier to raise money. I have to be honest, in 2019, it was much easier to raise money, even when all I had was a really pretty slide deck and a great idea and a bit of experience proving that I had executed and exited businesses in the past. When we raised our Series A in 2021, in the middle of COVID, I did not meet a single investor face-to-face. I did the entire round, which was £8 million, and I also took in another 6 to secondary out my seed round. I didn't meet a single one of them. Again, it was a lot easier to raise money in 2021. Since 2021, the entire venture capital market has completely been flipped on its face, and it is starting to rebound slowly, but the rate at which capital is being deployed has completely changed. So I could do a whole panel on this topic. So I think my one piece of advice to you is vet your investors or your potential investors the same way you would vet a new employee. The relationship is two ways, and you owe it to yourself to do that. Those relationships are not short-term, and you need to be sure that you know the people that you're going to be working with. The second really big thing I would say is diversify your cap table the same way you would diversify your commercial opportunities and your pipeline. I have CVCs, VCs, angel investors, family offices. Each one of them has a different view on valuation, has a different access to capital, when all the VCs had to sit on their hands when the financial market collapsed, the corporate venture didn't care at all. Nothing changed for them. They're part of a big company. So make sure you diversify your cap table, because you can't possibly anticipate what's going to happen. And the best way to do that is to hedge your bets with diversification.
Yeah, brilliant advice, actually. And it's not easy because you've got to put yourself out there, right?
Yeah.
And you do have to be prepared for the no's and the knockbacks, and absolutely. Anyone else want to chip in on the panel about raising finance? Mark, Laura, Claire? Anyone else?
I just find you so compelling. Like,
Oh,
whatever
thank
I
you.
would just give you money. Just like, I don't know if anyone like. I've never met someone where I'm just like, I just know you're going to make me more money. So if you need any money, I don't have any, but I'll give it to you.
Thank you. I have a Suri toothbrush, by the
Oh,
way.
okay.
I didn't even know that it was
No
the same
way.
company, but yes, I
Okay,
definitely do.
Let's definitely sort each other out. I think I've got a couple of thoughts on this, because it's absolutely true that 2021 and prior it was much easier to raise, and since then it's been harder to raise. We have only raised subsequent to 2021, and a lot of people like, oh wow, how did you do that? And in each round we've had more investors wanting to put money in than we had available slots. And I think there's a couple of comments I'd make on it. So one, some of the world's biggest companies, some of the world's biggest Fortune 100 companies were born out of the Depression, and come in when times are hardest. There's this weird correlation where some of the best companies are founded. And I think the reason, actually I don't know the reason. My guess for the reason is that when times are hard, you really have to really lean in and be very, very focused on building a sustainable, profitable, scalable company, and you have to operate in a tighter way. Now, building that muscle and building a company that can grow in a lean, sustainable way, I think is actually a good thing for the long run. And there's a lot of companies who did raise a lot of money prior to 2021 who, guess what?
Yeah.
Still aren't profitable, have gone under, wasted investors' money, wasted their time. And I think actually that's almost like a downside of some of the VC industry is companies who shouldn't really have money get money. So I'd just say to anyone in the crowd, just build a really good company. Do you know what I mean? Like that, if you focus on that, if you're not getting funding, chances are you maybe don't have a really great company. Go back and work out how to make it better and less risky. And it is difficult. People, oh, how did you get that? We had 98% rejections. Fortunately, I've spent the better part of my late teenage years and early 20s getting rejected by a lot of other people in nightclubs. And so I had I was sort of, by the time it came to funding, I was like, what, you don't want me? Don't worry, next. And so I think the trick is, though, to try and not take it personally, which is really difficult, because someone rejecting your idea can feel like they're rejecting you and your ego, and it hurts, but it doesn't hurt if you're kind of used to it. And also if you realize that, just because, the girl or man at the bar isn't interested, it doesn't deplete your value as a person. You just haven't met your right person. And so fortunately, by not taking it too personally, we managed to find the right investors. And when you meet the one, who writes the big checks, then you kind of, that's all it takes. So I'd just say, focus on building really great business, being lean, and kiss enough frogs, and you'll find the right partner.
Yeah, great advice there, Mark, actually. And coming back to the advice from your mum, right? Start with why. Is your business case compelling enough that people want to invest?
And, just this is so crucial. In all our rejections, again, I'm not trying to give dating advice, but it was the same way, If someone rejects you, don't be like, you're an idiot, I hate you. Say okay, cool, maybe I'll see you again sometime. And then guess what? When you're a bit richer and you're a bit more successful, suddenly, now you're interested in me. And so without in every round, we raised 3 rounds, someone who rejected us in the prior round has come in, because I would say to them, in the next 12 months, we're going to do this, 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 and this. And they'd be like, oh, well, we can't invest in this round. Okay, cool. And then in 12 months' time, I'd be like, we did all those things, and we surpassed all of it by 50%, and we're going to raise again. I don't mind whether you invest in me now at this valuation or whether you invest when it's more expensive. Yeah. The only difference to me is that you're going to make less money, so your call. And it's worked like a charm each time.
Well, great dating advice from Mark, great chat-up advice at the bar, and also great advice on how to raise finance. So there we are. That's a triple whammy.
I'm terrible at dating advice, but yeah.
No, that's really interesting, and I think building that thick skin, isn't it? That a knockback, it might be a not right now, or it might be a no, but actually it's one step closer to the yes, because you've had a chance to practice as well and learn through the experience. So coming to Claire and to Laura. any perspectives for you on either raising finance or choosing when to invest in a project, a product, a new development? Because that's the other side. It's great to get the money, but what are you going to spend it on, right? So maybe coming from a slightly different angle rather than raising the finance, choosing when to invest and what to invest and how best to select that. So whichever one of you wants to go first.
Well, I'll just jump in and say we were very fortunate in that Seedlip already had a relationship with Diageo when it was launched, and Ben was very clear about not wanting to be the only brand in that new category, and that he wanted to develop a huge non-alc portfolio, and so Diageo was already our investor when it came to developing Æcorn. So we were very much kind of very fortunate in that respect. And then when COVID hit, we were again very fortunate in that Seedlip had reached its kind of volume, and Diageo then decided to acquire both Seedlip and Æcorn at that time. Whether or not that was right for Æcorn at that time, because we were still so small, is still a question. But ultimately, I have not had to go through the dating challenges that Mark has had to with various investors. So we were very lucky.
Okay, great. Laura, your perspective.
Yeah, the thing I want to add is that there's also a really unsexy side of fundraising. We've raised 2 rounds. The first one was in 2021, and it was easy. It was so much easier. We didn't actually have a product. It was just, I was raising on an idea. But when it came to the next round, our seed round, it took us so long to do it. And I think, you made a really great point earlier that you don't want to just take anyone's money. And it's hard when your back's against a wall and you're like, we need a check, but you've got someone that, like, I've now started to always do DD on the investor. Because there was one I had just a little bit of a weird gut feeling about, and I hopped on a call with another company he invested in. And the lady was being kind of cagey, and I was just like, just give it to me. And she just said, run. So I didn't take his money. But it's difficult, I've been in a situation where I've slept on the airport floor in LAX. I don't know if anyone's been there at night time. It is a sketchy place. But I had to go there in order to have a meeting with an investor, and I just couldn't afford a hotel room. And then it turned out this investor, he actually just wanted a date. He didn't even want to invest. And I don't know whether maybe guys have this too, but yeah, it's a tough world out there. It's not all just like, we raised 10 million and life's great. It can be brutal.
Yeah, so it's not all glamour, is it? Let's face it.
No.
It's not all glamour. We have got a load of questions, but I'm conscious of the time, so we could be here for hours actually. But I'm gonna skip a few, and I just want to come to how do you create a brand in a category that doesn't exist? I'm going to come to you, Claire, for this, because as you said, non-alcoholic drink is the norm really now. We see so much around, but back when you started, that wasn't the case, and you alluded to it earlier. So, yeah, how do you build a brand in a category that doesn't exist, that people don't necessarily know they even have a need right now?
Yeah, I mean, look, we don't have a crystal ball, but I would say in the last 10 years, that non-alc category has gone from 1 brand to over 500, and that category is now worth over $10 billion globally. So for 10 years, that's very, very quick. And there's still so much headroom. And I think the drivers of that are all down to our fascination, obsession with health and longevity. We all want to live forever now. And those drivers were in place way before Seedlip was introduced in 2015. And so I think part of Ben's skill at that time was being able to create something that tapped into the mindset around drinking, moderation. We were more visible than ever, so social media was a thing, so nobody really wanted to be seen drunk on Facebook at the time. So his ability to maybe kind of just tap into that and then be very, very clear on what challenge Seedlip and then latterly Æcorn was trying to solve. And so I think for today, for those brands in this space who perhaps are thinking, is there any more room? I would say yes, absolutely. And the room for me is around luxury, longevity, plus moderation. I think there's so much opportunity for non-alc in that space. We've seen the category grow exponentially. And there was a lot of conversation around why are we spending so much money around something that doesn't have alcohol in it. Today, those conversations are shifting into give me something that's well-made, consistent, good for me, functional, looks beautiful, it's part of my lifestyle, meets my sort of status cues, and that for me is where non-alc is, or moderation is set to kind of grow even more exponentially.
Fantastic. Listen, everyone, we are out of time, unfortunately. We could have gone for another hour, I think. But listen, thank you to our wonderful panel. A round of applause to everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching this special episode from the Festival of Entrepreneurs. Our mission is simple: to help founders and business owners grow faster, think bigger, and take action. And if you were part of the event, thank you for joining us and being part of the community. And if you missed it, don't worry. We'll be back with even more ideas, inspiration, and opportunities to help you take your business to the next level. You can find out more and register for future events at festivalofentrepreneurs.co.uk.